the evening is Brad Sears. He's the director of Interactivity and producer and developer. His presentation's around how to take a 3D scan to a low poly PBR Unity asset workflow. And if we could just give him a warm welcome.
Hi everybody, I'm Brad. I'm not the best public speaker, so bear with me if I mangle any words, just ask me, I don't mind. Let's see if I can do this. Great. So, I've been working in the interactive industry in Toronto for about 20 years. I've made many games for kids' animated TV shows, most of them simple web games. I work at Smiley Guy Studios, which is an animation studio here. So we've made a lot of games and sites and contests and apps, and I got pretty bored with it. And like many of you, I got revved up about VR about 3 years ago, and I started fiending on that, and it's taken over my weekends and so on. We did a couple of small apps, some 360 video work, but we finally got a nice project that I sunk my teeth into, and I ended up doing the entire thing solo. So it involved a lot of 3D work, which was new to me, and I was able to follow some workflows online for photogrammetry, and that's what I'm going to talk about here. Let's try this. So the project, which I'll show it trailer for at the end, is a pilot for a VR documentary series called 10,000 Hours. It riffs on the Malcolm Gladwell idea, 10,000 hours of good practice leading to excellence. So our first subject was, I guess I'll go back, Sean McCall, who is the best climber in the world. He's Canadian, he's a 2020 Olympic hopeful, and we worked with him for 2 days, and I scanned his climbing gym and his equipment, and we did a lot of green screen video with him, and the idea is that you're in his space with him, doing a little bit of training with him. And to point out something that the previous speakers have brought up, there is a more direct connection with a video when you're in VR. The audio is coming from them, you're looking right at their eyes, they are human sized, and you basically feel more connected with them. So I'm going to take you through my technical process here. This is a talk that is more for developers. Does anybody here work with apps? And does anybody here know what UVs are? That's good. That's good. So I'll try to go through it quickly because it's a bit boring, but I'm happy to talk about it way more than you want to talk about it. So you can deal with me after. So basically, photogrammetry is a process where you can take tons of perfect pictures of a 3D object, and then the computer is able to build a photorealistic and scale perfect model of that. And these models are used in movies and so on. You may have seen actors that are in the photo rigs, and you can create these awesome 3D models, yet they're extremely complex and high poly, which, as was mentioned earlier, is too much work for the rendering engines, and so we need to optimize them down in order to use in VR and also to use in AR. And luckily, a lot of my tricks from the ancient world of Flash gaming, where you had to optimize because we were all on dial-up, that went away like everything else in life. Now it's back and I have to re-optimize everything. So what we're going to do quickly here is we're going to capture a whole bunch of photos that are perfect. We're going to process them. We're going to build a basic model. Then I'm going to correct all the problems with that model. Now we have a master high poly model, and we're talking like 20 to hundreds of millions of polygons. Then we're going to, from that high poly master, we're going to make a nice low poly model, because that's what we want in our game engines. And then we're going to color it using all the info from the photos, and we're going to bake those textures down. We're going to use the awesome model in order to make all these textures that we use on the low poly model. I don't know if you've noticed in games in the last maybe 5 or 10 years, but the 3D stuff responds correctly to light now, and that's called PBR, or physical based rendering. And all that means is, rather than having a model that has a picture on it, it now has a picture, but also it has another picture which represents the smoothness, another picture which represents the glossiness, another picture which represents different factors of how the light will hit it. All right, so let's begin. So you need to become a photo hobbyist. I always skipped over knowing how my camera worked, but now I know everything. And you have to be very deliberate with depth of field and focus, because basically you need pixel perfect pictures that are all exposed exactly the same way. So this pixel of orange here will be the exact same color of orange from this view, from this view, from this view, and that's how it's able to make the model there. So here I'm showing a couple of techniques. You need a lot of overlap with your pictures. You need every angle. Here's some stuff for surveying. Here's what I was talking about previously about how they scan actors in like a photo cage. So I built a light box, because another thing you need to do is make sure that the lighting is always consistent. And the dream shooting day for a photogrammetry shoot is an overcast day, because now we have uniform lighting everywhere. There's no shadows when it's overcast. I didn't know that before, but there aren't, because the light is from everywhere. And this just talks about depth of field, which basically means what you're shooting, every part of it needs to be in focus. You don't want any of that bokeh or whatever the new iPhone does, blur the background. If you have a I missed one, right? Yeah, if you have a shiny surface, or you have a transparent surface, that's another problem, because the light is different on a glass, as we all know, and it's also very different on anything that's smooth. And so here's a technique where you can buff it, or you can add on another texture and then remove it later in the graphics. You can also use this awesome technique where basically you polarize the light one way, and then you reverse polarize on your lens, and just like a polarizing filter, when you take a picture of water or whatever, it takes the glare out, and I'm happy they invented it, because it's amazing. You're going to also need perfect colors and scale, and they make these nice little tools. This is a color card, and basically the idea is that these color values are known, and you're able to correct for the actual color of your subject by analyzing how the known colors in the color card are photo. I mangled that, but I think it's obvious. You need one of these. So now you're in Lightroom, and basically you're going to do that color correction. You're going to remove your bad shots. Every shot needs to be perfect, or else you're going to end up with like a Rundle fly situation. We're going to make 2 sets of photos. One is going to be your alignment set. You notice here that we're removing a lot of the shadow information and basically tweaking the contrast a little, because that allows the software to get a perfect match on all of these different features it's calling in. And then we're going to color correct again. Great. Then we're making a second set of photos, and these are for painting the textures on, and you can tweak them however you want. You can alter the colors. It doesn't matter, because all of these new photos will be applied from the camera positions, which looks like this, and it will be painted on the constructed model. So this is what the cameras look like. Each one of these is a place that I was in space. I was using a rotating table here, and that's why it looks so cool. So here we are. Now we've got our model, we've colored it, and we're just going to do some basic 3D work on it now. Here, because I can't scan the entire shoe, I can do the top and the bottom. I did 2 scans, and now I'm going to sandwich them together. So here you can just take a look at the kind of detail that we're going to get from these models. Like, this is obviously a zoom in of this area right here, and you can see that we even get the surface of the stitches and the rise of the thread. I've modeled a hair before, if you can believe that. Your goal here is to preserve the most detail possible while still being able to work with your model, because this could be a 20 million or 100 million polygon model. No one would use that in a VR experience. We top out now at about 1 million, depending on certain variables. But this is your master. And I'm colorizing it because of a technical need I have later. Now I'm bringing the whole model into my modeler, and I'm fixing little problems with it. Here, the half scans I had, I missed a little area, and you can see that I'm building in that little seam there. Now that we have our high poly master model, you'll notice here it still has some colors that are missing, because those were parts of the model that I didn't get photos of, and it's within the shadow of the shoe anyways. Oh, by the way, this is a climbing shoe. This is one of Sean McCall's amazing shoes. And this is our master model. So we would never use this in a game, but now we're going to make a low poly version of it. So this is a 5,000 polygon version of this, whatever, X million polygon shoe, and it is a rough shape, and I wish I hadn't put this picture in, because this could be the exact same quality and be down around 700 polygons because of different techniques in making a low poly model. You can make a whole career out of creating low poly models, or you could have a lifetime of reading guides on how to do it. So then we're going to unwrap the UVs, and this is a big problem in the process. So UVs are neat. It's an awesome name, because you know how with our model coordinates. We've got X, Y, and Z. Well, guess what? UV comes before that. And what UV is, it's just a 2D material that wraps around the 3D model. And the problem is that these 3D models that you're working with from photogrammetry are like so complex that they're impossible. Like we're talking like twisted Mobius strips upon Mobius strips of surfaces, and it basically breaks your computer. So you're ready to invest a whole lot of time in unwrapping the UVs because you're going to crash every day. And now I'm going to do some exports. Really should get rid of this slide. We're bringing in our high poly master, and we have our low poly, and we're swapping our alignment set of textures don't have to align anymore. Now we're going to make the perfect model. I'm colorizing the high poly with my visually pleasing texture set versus the alignment, exporting some stuff, and now we're going to do texture baking. So what that is again is you've got your awesome, high detailed, super complex model, and you've got your crappy low poly model. What you're going to do is paint basically down every color on every polygon and make all these texture maps. The texture maps are pretty neat. I believe this one is a normal map. That means these are the directions that are normal to the surface of every part of this texture. Normal means perpendicular. So we make all these weird textures. That normal, we make the ambient occlusion, which means shadows. We make the normal map. I don't really remember why I need that, but I do need it, as well as the bent normal. And then here is what's called the albedo, which is actually the texture. So when I bring my low poly model into Unity, which is another game engine, it's similar to Unreal. And now I'm going to apply these models, and here's what I get with just the standard shader and the standard lighting in a new Unity project. And this is something that's good in low poly. You can even use it for an AR app on a phone. Once you get down to the hundreds of poly level, it's great. You're not going to blow your memory budget on your mobile build, and it's great when the light reacts well with a 3D prop. There's a final great tool here. There's this thing called Substance Painter, which is basically a Photoshop for 3D models. It lets you use basic Photoshop style processes on a model and on all the textures at once. It's pretty amazing, and you can link to it live out of Unity, so I can look at this thing in Unity, do some paint tweaks, see exactly how it looks. You can also use all their hundreds of materials in there. It looks amazing. You can see here that I just used some cloning stuff, and I fixed those holes. And so now I'm in Unity. This is a little screen grab out of this Sean McCall 10,000 hours project, and I've got my VR hand models in there. And basically, you're going to lift up the shoe here, and he's going to describe it. And if you look at a certain area, he'll note a couple of things. So that's basically the end of the process. And I've got some technical stuff about the lessons I learned and what photogrammetry software I like better and so on. But I'm thinking maybe I'll skip that. It's fine. You can just look at these pictures. Look, one is worse than the other. That's what I discovered. And your pictures have to be amazing. See, there's some slight jitter on a section of these, and look what happened to my model. It turned into garbage. That's so it really pays off to have every photo perfect, and you really have to know your camera, and you have to rent an awesome camera because you need amazing high resolution pictures. So just more and more points about this. You know, I can, if you guys message me after, I can send you this, as well as I've got a nice curated list of the good tutorials on all of this process. I recommend doing it because it's really cool, and it's something you can do even with your cell phone. And I don't know, I've always liked Photoshop batching, and this is the ultimate in batching because your machine will run all night. It's great. UV unwrapping is awful. Just get used to that. There we go. So now I have a trailer that I'll show you.
It seems to be impossible to achieve any kind of true expertise unless you have practiced for 10,000 hours.
Hey, I'm Sean McCall, and I'm a professional rock climber. It's taken a lot of work to get where I am today. My training is something I take very seriously. I have goals and a plan to reach these goals. I've dedicated my life to this sport. Currently, I train 25 hours a week and have periodized my training to peak for competitions. I have my sights set on the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games. These rock faces aren't like the holds in the climbing gym. You can grab them anywhere. Try and use the correct grip. Check out the orange shoe. It'll be a lot better for climbing vertical routes. The red chalk bag in front of you is a boulder bag, and you'll chalk up before every attempt on your boulder problems. Something about climbing, especially outside, is perseverance. After I've stuck it a few times with my toe hooks, I try to switch to just toe on. From here, you're gonna have to push a little bit towards the left and a little bit up towards that big one above the blue hold. Nice. Make sure to only touch the holds that I do. Now I'll climb it quickly. A little more. Now climb with me. Just a little higher. That's it. I've got my 10,000 hours. Let me show you what I've learned.
So did you only use like one camera? You just took multiple
Yeah.
Oh, so okay. So you have have them like hold this position and then kind of.
No. I for the shadow climbing, I recorded him in 4K, and I carefully measured the camera and so on, and then I was able to project that as a texture onto the 3D model, and then we broke it up into some narrated stuff from him, and it's not really an amazing climbing simulation, but he does, you're holding and looking at what he's talking about, and it's pretty cool.
What camera are you using?
For that, I used a Canon D10, I believe. I might be getting that wrong, but it cost $8,000, and I was able to borrow it from a friend. And the night before the trip, the whole lens came out. The mirror fell out of the middle, and he's like, "Oh, that happens all the time." Yeah.
What's the information that's lost if you use like a 360 degrees of cameras all around versus one camera on a rotating table?
I don't think there's information lost. There's a great benefit to getting one of those rigs because you take all the pictures at once. All of your locations are fixed, and you can like save the model alignment process because it doesn't have to calculate where the cameras are because you already know where they are. And so that's why it is better if you buy 85 $8,000 cameras. It's a lot better.
Have you used a panorama camera that rotates?
I don't know about that. All that I know is you have to get perfectly exposed and perfectly focused shots on the same lens. And if you do that, it works. If you don't do it, it'll never work.
For the shoe, if you're using a scanner?
So the shoe, I use my little light box and basically a kind of a family style restaurant rotating tray. And I just sat there, rotate a little bit, and then move the camera.
Stop motion.
Yeah, you can automate that, but I manualed it.
Have you tried 3D laser scanning?
I have, but those are more for like the survey world. Maybe they're great now, but that's.
Or for prototyping?
It seems like they're about like being able to scan a kilometer of a mountain range with 1 centimeter accuracy, whereas I'm looking for like a millimeter accuracy. And they're also terrifically expensive, and my friend didn't have one.
And for scanning objects is that?
Yeah.
You don't use it.
Well, from what I've seen, like the LiDAR scanning it's more for surveying. I've watched a video where there was this like spinning gear, 2 gears that were meshing, and this thing was modeling it live. So that was amazing, but I want to buy one, but I can't buy it.
On the lazy Susan, did you have to like kind of measure out like the rotations, like to be exact, or
No,
you kind of just take a picture as you rotate?
I made little pencil marks.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many hours does it take to make that shoe?
So we worked with him for 1 day, and most of that was green screens stuff, and he's not an actor, so there was a
No,
lot.
but for you to enter the shoe information.
So I'm getting there. The scanning took me basically 24 hours over 2 days. Like I took, I think 1,800 perfect photos of the climbing gym, and then each one of the, I think I've got 9 props. Each one of those was probably 250 pictures. It's worth it though, because then your computer goes crazy on it and it shows you an awesome model.
Right, that you could have used motion capture.
Pardon me?
You could have used a motion capture suit and created a 3D version of your climber. Virtual version.
Can you explain that a little bit more? A motion capture suit, like wearing the ping pong balls?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. So we knew that we couldn't handle the animating him because we only had him for a certain number of hours, and doing motion capture like that involves a very controlled environment, and we didn't have that. Like this was at a climbing gym and the kids were coming, so I had to get out of there.
How much hard drive space did you use, like for your?
I used all the hard drive space. This is a 3 terabyte project, and then I back it up. Yeah. So if anybody has any, yeah.
Oh, sorry, one question.
Yeah.
As a climber, I really enjoy climbing. My question is, climbing as an exercise itself engage a lot of like lower body muscles,
Yeah.
toes. So from your camera view, I can see there are a lot of like upper body. So how do you engage
Yeah.
that experience?
Well, there is like you can get trackers on your feet, but then when you're at home in your basement, you're not going to climb up on anything. So what we do when he narrates his climb, he describes what his feet are doing, and we encourage you to, try to do that while he's doing it. Like, we hope you do this, but really you could just do that. Okay, well, I'll be hanging out after, and I can't stop talking about this stuff, so just let me at it.